Welcome, everyone. It is Tuesday, July the 14th, 2020. It is currently 5:18 p.m. Central Time, and we have some breaking news. I don't know exactly how breaking it is. I'm assuming this information dropped a couple of hours ago. I completely missed it. So it's breaking in one sense that it's new to me. It may be new to you. But it may be a few hours old, so I apologize for that, but I think this is very important. And before I get to the news, let me try to set all of this up, and I'm going to answer an email question. In many of my podcasts, I will talk about the church, the state of the church. And when I say that, I'm using the term church in a generic way. And what I mean by that is I'm speaking of Christianity at large. When I say there's a problem in the church, there's a deadness in the church, I am not speaking of one specific church, one specific denomination. I'm saying in Christianity at large, the church, the body of Christ, is a spiritual lethargy. There's a spiritual apathy. There's a biblical illiteracy. There's a theological illiteracy. That means within Christianity at large, that is what I am speaking of when I refer to the church. I'm not referring to a specific church or a specific denomination. Typically, when I use the term church, I'm using it in a generic way. So I say that because it relates directly to what I'm about to say. One of the things that I've told everyone to keep looking out for is how the church, see the term church, how Christians at large are going to respond to the COVID-19 situation. I said from the very beginning when the COVID-19 situation started spreading and lockdowns were being called for, and then different things were being shut down, that Christians need to use this as a spiritual opportunity to look to ourselves, look to where we are spiritually. What can we do to improve ourselves spiritually? Churches need to look for this as an opportunity to call people to repentance, to increase teaching using technology, and all that, just to really focus on our spiritual condition and that we needed to be salt and light, and not to get caught up in all of the noise of the world, turn this into political debates and conspiracy debates. And I kept saying, look, church, let's not do that. In other words, Christians at large, let's not fall for that. And another thing I kept saying is, how is this going to impact the church in general, Christians in general, moving forward? Well, how is this going to impact churches? How many churches are going to be so negatively impacted financially that they may not be able to survive? There was lots of discussion early on that they were predicting that something like 10% of churches would close its doors by the end of this year or into next year. So there's been a lot of discussion of what's going to happen moving forward. Here in West Texas, we currently, here at Victory Baptist Church, we are not having in-person services because Texas is having a massive spike in coronavirus cases, COVID-19 cases. Death rates are slowly starting to rise. Hospitals in some areas are, reaching that kind of max capacity. There's possible major problems growing. And not only that, this clearly demonstrates that COVID-19 is not going away anytime soon. So what do we do? How do we move forward? How is this going to impact churches? Our church has been impacted, and churches around us are trying to figure out what to do. There are other churches who canceled in-person services for the entire month of July. Others are still open, trying to figure out what to do. There's going to be decisions that are going to have to be made as we move into August. This entire COVID-19 situation is going to impact the church. No matter, even if you're just one out there fighting it, you have the danger of turning this into political, conspiratorial arguments instead of just being the church. And others have the very difficult situation of going, okay, wait a minute. If we close down, then people in the church get mad and say you're not being godly, you don't have enough faith, so then they leave your church. If you stay open, other people say you don't care about people, so they're going to leave the church. This has the potential to split churches, divide churches, and hurt churches economically. So that's already been demonstrated. That is something we need to keep looking out for. But when a major church a very influential church comes out and announces, that's it, no more in-person services for the rest of 2020, we should all stop and take note. When a major influential church says, that's it, no more in-person services for the rest of this year, wow, we've all got to stop and take a look, because that means this decision could have a massive influence on a lot of other churches. And then what does the church look like if we're not meeting in person for the rest of this year? Who even comes back in 2021? Can a church survive doing that? What will be the financial implications? Well, today is the day that an influential church has come out and made an announcement. And, well, I'm going to play the announcement for you.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to give you a quick update as it relates to reopening our Atlanta area churches. And here's the bottom line. Based on the uptick in COVID-19 cases, the results of our attendee surveys, and the experiences of churches that have already reopened, we've decided to suspend in-person adult worship services for the remainder of the year. Now, as you would imagine, that was not a casual decision. In fact, back in May, when we announced a possible August 9 reopening, the COVID numbers were actually moving in the right direction. That has changed. Consequently, we cannot guarantee your safety, and that's a big part of this decision. And here's the thing. Even if we did reopen, we certainly would not be able to create a quality adult or children's worship experience with social distancing protocols in place. Now, one of the things that I love about our churches is that we attract all kinds of people with all kinds of opinions and persuasion. So for some of you, this makes perfect sense. And in fact, you may even be relieved. For others of you, this seems like an unnecessary precaution, perhaps a lack of faith on my part. You might even interpret this decision through a political filter. And honestly, I get all of that. So here's a bit more information that might help you understand our decision. And again, this is based on the experience of other similar sized churches around the country that opened 2 or even 3 weeks ago. If we open and a volunteer, a child or a student or an adult who attends any of our environments tests positive after the fact, we're responsible for doing all the contact tracing. And that would be the right thing to do. That's the responsible thing to do. But that would be pretty much an impossible thing to do. If you've been part of any of our churches for any length of time, you can imagine how difficult, again, next to impossible, that would be. And honestly, that's just one of several unforeseen factors that other churches are running into. So the truth is, I actually have a lot of faith. In fact, I have so much faith that I'm absolutely confident that the church and our local churches will not only survive this, but I think ultimately we're going to thrive as a result. Besides, as you've heard me say on many occasions, we are the church. And whether we gather in circles, in driveways, in the church parking lot, or online or in our homes, the church is going to be fine. We're going to continue to meet other people's needs. We're going to continue to serve the community. We're going to continue to be the hands and feet of Jesus in each other's lives, as well as the lives of people who aren't even a part of one of our churches. So when we reopen, I'm absolutely confident we're going to reopen strong. And I'm confident of that because I'm confident in you. And 2,000 years of church history attest to the fact that Jesus is actually building his church, and we are simply invited to participate in the process. But so, we're not going to sit around on our hands waiting for a vaccine. We're going to update all of our digital and online experiences for you and your children and your students. In addition, we're going to create a strategy for limited physical gatherings as well. So I need for you to stay tuned, read these emails. And one last thing. Make sure you tune in Sunday for the launch of our brand new series entitled Leading Through 3 Essentials for Navigating Uncertainty. If you're responsible for leading your family or maybe coworkers or maybe an entire community through this time of disruption, this series is for you. That's it for now. Thank you for your patience. We will keep you updated. In the meantime, stay safe.
That is Andy Stanley from North Point Community Church. Andy Stanley from North Point Community Church announced this morning that he is closing North Point Community Church for the rest of the year, offering all services strictly in a virtual form until 2021 at the earliest. Now, I want you to know today is July the 14th. So that means they're not going to open. The earliest will be January of 2021. Now, what are the consequences of doing that? What are the consequences? I don't know. We could speculate. How many people will just go to a different church? How many people will never come back? How many people will get so used to just not attending church that when the church doors open, they never walk back through the door? How will this impact giving? Can a church survive with 6 months of not being open? Can they do that? Now, this is the first major church. This may be the first major church. Again, that's a big church, influential church. They already have a massive online presence. What does the church look like in 2021? I mean, these are questions we have to ask ourselves. What are local churches going to look like by the time we get to 2021? How many are going to survive? Now this is a very important question. Is this a violation of Scripture? Now, again, a lot of people are going to say, forsake not the assembly, forsake not the assembly, forsake not the assembly. Many of the people who scream that out got no problems when their churches cancels for a 4th of July picnic, or cancels for, a Mother's Day luncheon, or they'll cancel the Sunday evening service, cancel this service, cancel for all kinds of activities. They got no problem. They won't complain when churches cancel for bad weather. If there's a horrible storm, a hurricane, or a horrible winter storm, they got no problem that they cancel. So if you can cancel for all kinds of conditions, then is this the fact that you're canceling for more than one service? Is it the number of services? Like, can you cancel at all, or is it about the number of services? And if you cancel the in-person, but you're still, providing teaching and discipleship, and you're doing everything you can using technology, is that a violation? Can we fulfill that? There's going to be so many debates about that. And here's what the danger. Churches are going to split over it. Churches are going to literally disintegrate and fall apart in front of our eyes. Now, if I look, in fact, let me look right now. I have not been keeping up with the news today. I've been doing all kinds of other things. Let me look here. My iPad's the battery's about to die. Let me look here. I'm going to go to update and see what's going on here. All right. Virus rules tighten worldwide. So there's all kinds of restrictions and rules happening all across the world. Miami is the COVID capital. Which state post? See, which state is this? Florida posts record 132 daily COVID-19 deaths. All right. So COVID-19 deaths among Florida residents rose by a record 132. Another sign that the virus's resurgence across the Sun Belt is starting to have severe consequences. And remember, that's what I told everyone. I kept seeing people going, look, the pandemic is over. It doesn't matter if cases are going up, the deaths are going down. The pandemic is over. And I told people who told me that, you call me in a couple of weeks, because the death rate will be 4 to 6 weeks behind the case increase. And here we are, a record number of people are dying. Now, 132, you may say, well, that's insignificant. That's 132 human beings who died because of COVID-19. And I've heard news report after news report, a person saying, I didn't think it was serious. I ignored all of the things. Now they're in the hospital bed saying, I made a mistake, and then they die. And they leave family members behind because they didn't take this serious enough. Let's see what else is going on. New York is pushing to track visitors. Let's see what else is happening. Refrigerated trucks requested in Arizona, Texas, as morgues reach capacity. All right. Atlanta, Los Angeles, San Diego to keep classrooms shut. All right. And then I could just go on and on and on. So clearly there's all kinds of things happening as it relates to COVID-19. And here we are, one of the biggest churches. I'm going to make sure I give you the name again. North Point Community Church Pastor Andy Stanley, his father, Charles Stanley, that's it. No more in-person services for the rest of 2020. They're not going to reopen. At the earliest will be 2021, probably January of 2021. So if that's one, you'll know there's going to be a second. And if there's a second, there's going to be a third. And if there's a third, then there's going to be a fourth. I don't know. And I don't know. I don't know how this plays out. I think every Christian right now needs to really think this through. And let me just beg you. Let me plead with you. Please, please, please don't be a source of schism, division in the church. Do everything you can to work, to support, to help during this time. We need Christians. Look, churches are going to need Christians who are supportive, who are helpful, who are encouraging, who are speaking up, who are giving. Look, people help ministries survive right now. Give, support, encourage, contact, email. I mean, this is a crazy time. And again, I think if that's the first, it's not, I'm telling you, the second, the third, the fourth is going to follow. And of course, it's going to be the big mega churches who announce closures first, who don't reopen. They're going to be the first. This is the first one to announce it. They're done for the rest of the year. They're not even going to play it month by month. They've just decided it's over. And obviously they can reverse their decision at a later time. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what to do for me. And we're a small church. And I know a lot of Christians are going, and I know a lot of the lay people are thinking, well, who cares? Have faith. And a lot of the average church members are playing this down. But I want you to realize, as a pastor, here's my perspective. We open our doors as a result. Look at the church in Florida where the teenage girl supposedly went to a church event, got COVID-19 and died, 17 years of age. If I was a pastor, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I have all these warnings around me that, hey, this disease can kill people. And I'm like, hey, we're not going to worry about it. Come to church. Someone comes to church, contracts COVID-19 in my church, and then dies. I'm basically responsible for them die. I'm basically responsible for killing them. I can't, as a pastor, that's hard for me to comprehend. And think about this. Someone in my church contracts COVID-19 in my church, then carries it out of the church, infects someone else, and they die. Then when the news media finds out that COVID-19 case originated inside the walls of my church, then all of a sudden you got media attention all over you. Like the church in Florida, they had media attention all over them. They started pulling down things from Facebook. They had to deal with I don't want the news media in the parking lot of my church going, hey, what are you doing? Why didn't you take precautions? And you can say, well, the news media should be worried about the protesters or about this or about that. It doesn't matter if they should be. They're going to be in the front of your church going, I thought you loved people and I thought you cared about the sanctity of human life and you put people's lives at risk. A mega church may be able to survive that. A small church, that could be detrimental to them. And then again, are you responsible for for tracking and informing everyone that, hey, you were in church on this day, someone has tested positive, and then you've got to go contact everyone who possibly is exposed. If you're a large church, can you imagine that would be impossible to even try to pull that off. How would you even know who's there? So you would have to contact every member. And again, large churches, that it raises questions of responsibility. It raises questions of how do you do this? How do you do this safely? It raises responsibilities about how we're perceived from the vantage point of the world. We want to have a good testimony as much as possible. We want to be salt. We want to be light. We want to be as wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. Every church is going to struggle with this. Just as church members, please don't be the one causing all the trouble and dividing the church. We've got to work together. This is a difficult situation, but I wanted to bring this to your attention. It just raises so many questions. I don't have the answers, as you can hear. I don't have the answers. I don't know where this goes. But if the COVID situation continues on its current path, we're not going to be done with this in August. We're not going to be done with this in September. And then once we get to September, COVID-19, then we get into flu season. I don't even know what everything looks like between September and between September and January. I don't even know what we're looking at. And now we got reports that a person's immunity after they contract COVID-19 and get over it, their immunity only lasts for a few months. Well, that destroys the whole concept of herd immunity. And we still don't know when a vaccine is going to be ready. And I mean, there's just so many questions. And I know a lot of people saying, well, look, we're just going to have to live with it. Who dies is who dies. That's easy for you to say. That's easy for you to say until you or someone in your family is responsible for killing someone. You may change, or it's one of your family members dying. You may change your tune a little bit, but I don't know. This is a crazy situation. I know it's easy. Look, I don't like Andy Stanley's preaching as far as the way he handles scripture. I clearly don't like his theology. I could criticize him all day. I'm not going to sit there and criticize this decision because it's a hard decision to make. I mean, I would prefer to have everyone in my church. I would prefer that. And I feel that in many cases, that's the most biblical way. But how do we balance all of these ideas of loving your neighbor, loving your enemy? You know, how do we balance all of these concepts and not just focusing on one verse? And if we're going to focus on the one verse, hey, don't forsake the assembly. Well, then, do you church discipline people who forsake the assembly? Like, you know, like how do you work? How do you put that passage into practice? Do you cancel services for bad weather? Do you cancel services for the holidays? I mean, how many churches, if Christmas falls on a Sunday, they'll cancel church? Well, if you'll cancel it for the celebration of the incarnation of Christ, then you can't cancel it for a pandemic. So I just think we have to be consistent here. And again, let's refrain from the political conspiratorial thinking. Let's just try to think this through carefully and biblically. It's a crazy time to be alive. But there is the story. Andy Stanley, North Point Community Church in Atlanta, Georgia, has announced that they are suspending in-person church services for the rest of 2020. The earliest they will open will be sometime in 2021. All right, I'll stop right there. Email me your thoughts to newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Everyone have a great day. God bless.